Wouldn't be saying these words, but I learned so many stories about Dusty Baker that will help me as a human, as a parent in life, and so I can't wait to crack that open. His memoir, if you don't have it, get it. We're going to be talking about that quite a bit tonight. And also, you've known people who have invented things before, you've probably met entrepreneurs before, but tonight is the night. If you've never met him, you will meet the person that invented the high five. High five your neighbor for that, right now.
You guys crazy.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, make some noise, because here we go, cracking open Dusty Baker. All right.
Hey, first I got to give some love to Warnell. Because, see, I mean, it was long time ago that we were hanging out. And I hadn't seen Warnell in 30 years, maybe? Wow. 20, I think it's closer to 30. Yeah. And it was great seeing you. I mean, it brings back memories, especially when you end up with old friends. You know, you can't lie to them. They can't lie to you because they know the truth. So, Warnell, I got love for you, man. Thank you.
And I will be coming to you for a question later on.
Oh, no, you won't.
Good stuff. All right, what I love about the books, I've heard you respond to this so many times throughout life, but in your book, you really crack it open, the mystery as to where the name Dusty came from. Mom, dad, or aunt?
Well, there's an argument in the family. My mom argues with my aunt, you know, who gave me the name. And my dad, you know, he's never in the argument. And the thing about it is, there was a big backyard with grass. We had one dirt spot in the middle, and that's where I played. And so, you know, they didn't want to call me Dirty, so they called me Dusty. All right. And you know, I've never been called anything but Dusty in the family. I've never been called Junior, Johnny B. I mean, there's one Johnny B in our house, that was my dad. You know, Big John. And so if anybody calls me Johnny, my real name, it's usually somebody that I went to elementary school with, because the teacher wouldn't call you by your nicknames. So, you know, I'd be in Dodger Stadium and somebody go, "Hey, Dusty," and I'd just wave and keep on going. But somebody say, "Johnny." And he get my attention right away, and it was usually one of my homeboys.
We're getting Dusty from playing outside. Like, remember back in the days when kids used to play outside? It's crazy.
Every day. And my brother's here, Rob, in the back there, and people mistake us all the time, and he's like, "Hey, man, I know you're Dusty." He goes, No, I'm not. And see, and he's 2.5 years younger than me, and all we did was play ball. I mean, we played football, we played basketball, we played marbles, we played, you know, over the line, strike out at night, and people used to ask me, "Man, why are you so hard to strike out?" Because, see, my brother was was as good as me when he was 10 when I was 12 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, and I couldn't strike him out. And we'd play at dark, and then if you struck out, then the next day you had to pitch. Oh man, I was pitching for a week if I struck out. and that's why I was so hard to strike out, because my brother, you know, was a baseball player in the family. I was a football, basketball player, but my brother was a baseball player, and because of him, that's what made me better. It made me good.
I wasn't going to ask any personal questions that you don't crack open in the book, but I do, since you introduced your brother, I want to ask a personal question. Have you guys ever played pickleball? And who's better?
No, man.
All right. Finally, I found somebody not ready to talk about pickleball. Can I have a high five for that?
Oh, Mark, look, man, you still in shape. You probably evidently don't have bad knees. Now, see, bad knees runs in my family. My dad had a bad knee. I have 2 bad knees. My brother got 2 bad knees, and my other brother had 2 bad knees. So pickleball wasn't in our vocabulary.
All right. So in the book, there's so many chapters that it's a snapshot of the era. It's a snapshot of history. You're reading about Dusty, you're learning about Dusty, but at the same time, you learn about the world. And so you said it beautifully. You say about the 1960s. You came of age in the 1960s. In your words, you said it was beautiful and confusing at the same time. And then you elaborated on growth and how it opened your eyes.
Well, the 60s, you know, was a time of peace and love. It was a time of nonconformity. It was a time of, you know, race riots. It was a time of, you know, civil unrest in our in our country, and it was a time of Vietnam. And, it was confusing, but it was beautiful at the same time because I saw more love during that era than I see now. And, if anything, people were more together at that time because, there was a cause. And we haven't really had a cause in a long time to unite people. And so that's what I meant by it was beautiful but confusing because, see, I was 18 years old. And see, I was 15 going on 16 when I moved up here to Sacramento. And it was a whole different world than we had in Southern California. And, I've never seen trees, other than eucalyptus trees. That's all we had down there, and cactus, and then kind of desert, and, so much water and so much fishing and just all the things that I like to do down there because my dad was from the South. My dad's from Florida. And so we were raised Southern. We had chickens in the backyard. We had a garden. I still got a garden. We raised collard greens, mustard greens, you name it, we raised it. And we ate out of the garden. And we fished for the meat. We didn't fish for the sport. And, my dad, we always had food. We always had what we needed, some of what we wanted, but definitely we had all that we needed. And so, I had a great childhood. I didn't realize it really until later because I was always thinking that, my mom made us go to class all the time, made us put our homework on the table. People ask me, man, you got a beautiful handwriting. That's because if my mom couldn't read it, you had to do it over again. I mean, and that's horrible. And then, because I didn't want to do it the first time. And then what made it worse is some of the kids could copy their parents' handwriting and get out of school. And I practiced and practiced my mom's writing. I could never get that M. And I could never turn it in because, man, if my dad caught me, he'd kill me.
You brought up your dad, so I want to turn to a story you talk about. You said your mom made you do it until you got it right. There's a story in there. Your dad had you shine his shoes. And if you ever want to be self-conscious, read that chapter about shining shoes. It lasted to this day. It affects you. Talk about that. It's the whole reason I'm wearing felt shoes, because you can't shine felt. Seriously, talk about the lasting impression.
Well, hey, man, we had to shine my dad's shoes, me and my brother, to get ready for church on Sunday. And then we had to shine the car. And he didn't want any spots on the chrome or nothing. And his favorite words are, hurry up. I said, hurry up. And then you sitting there watching TV and we out here polishing the car. But the car had to look good. I mean, to this day, I don't like a dirty car. And I don't like these guys that have like $1,000 suit on or $1,500 suit and look like their shoes look like they've been kicking cans. And I'm like, man, you need to put some polish on them shoes, dude. You know what I mean?
That's pretty much me.
No, it's not. I have never seen you look like you've been kicking cans.
I'm wearing Amazon shoes.
No, but every time I seen you, man, you've been clean.
I don't know.
No, I'm serious because somebody said today, hey, Dusty, look now, you got to look presentable because you up there with a man that's clean every day. That's pretty cool. I like that.
I'm compensating for something not going on because I'm not an MVP. But you brought up your dad, so I want to tap dance cleanly into this. Was there ever a time that you were familiar with a publication that you didn't want your dad to know you were familiar with, but you quoted it? And this specifically came up when you were picking colleges. And your dad suddenly figured out that you two would maybe be reading the same magazine.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the two colleges you picked and why you picked them.
Well, see, my dad wanted me to go to Santa Clara. But I didn't want to go to another predominantly white school. Like my high school, my last 2 years, we were the only black kids in the school, me and my brother. And so, I wanted to go to a more mixed school. I wanted to go to a party school. I wanted to go where I could just get a C and stay eligible. And I could do that standing on my head. And so I wanted to go to Arizona State to play football. They wanted me. And I wanted to go to San Jose State with Darnell Hillman because they wanted me for basketball. So I was over at my buddy's house, Mr. Winterout, who used to own Vandenberg Motors down here. And next thing I know, we're reading the Playboy magazine. And the Playboy magazine had a story in there that the 1-2 party schools in the country was San Jose State and Arizona State. So I'm like, oh man, this is where I want to go. And so my dad, he goes, when I told him, he goes, oh no boy, you ain't going there. I said, why, Dad? He goes, oh, that's the 1-2 party school in the country. and so I didn't have guts enough to ask, how do you know? And see, my dad was a Baptist deacon. And deacons don't read no Playboy magazine. And I was a junior deacon, and I wasn't supposed to be reading no Playboy magazine.
So there's that. All right, so you mentioned Southern California, Riverside. You talk in the book about moving from Riverside to Sacramento. It opened your eyes in a different way. And I'll jump kind of right into the references because we kind of claim you in Sacramento.
Yeah.
Especially, you are a legend.
Well, I claim you too,
Thank you.
But listen.
But seriously, in Sacramento, you're either somewhere where Dusty has been or Dusty's coming here. You are a part of this town.
And there's a lot of people like, hey man, I heard you over here. That wasn't me. See, there's a lot of impersonators over here.
Could be.
I'm serious though. And see, I don't know anybody that looks like me other than my brother. And I know my brother wasn't hanging out. Right, Rob?
So verify if it's Dusty. Del Campo High School. So correct me if I'm wrong, but when you two went there, you were the only two black people in that population, and that had to be a huge adjustment from Riverside. I don't know how the lay of the land is now, but back then, Riverside was probably more diverse at that time than Sacramento at that time.
Riverside was probably 50% Mexican.
Right.
And we used to go to the settlement house on Cinco de Mayo. I mean, if you was black, you thought you was part Mexican. And that's how it was. And to this day, I tell people I'm the black Mexican because half my partners that I grew up with, was Chile, Conte, Huevo, Cabazon Frente. I mean, those are some of the names for the dudes I grew up with. And so when I came up here, and naturally, we went to the black church, Reverend Moss's church, and so everybody in town knew each other, especially those that played ball. And they all knew my dad, as Big John, Mr. Baker. And Riverside then was only like 50,000 people. And my mom was from Southern California. She grew up in Indio. She was born in Indio and then raised in Riverside. So we came up here. It was my junior year of high school. And so I was going to be the big man on campus to follow Bobby Bonds down in Riverside because Bobby was the man. As good as some people thought I was, man, I couldn't hold a candle to Bobby Bonds. And so we came up here, and first day of school, saw my brother. He was down in the freshman, sophomore wing, and I was up in the junior, senior wing, and Del Campo was a brand new school. We had language lab, we had a new pool, a new gym. I mean, it was cool. That I wasn't used to that, but then I saw my brother at lunchtime, and I said, Rob, I said, man, you see any other blacks here? And he told me, he said, just you. And I said, well, you're the only brother I've seen here too. So we get home that night, and I asked my sister, who's in the junior high, any black kids in there at junior high, and she told me just her. And then we went to, I spoke to my brother and sister at the elementary, and they're the only two black kids at the elementary school. And it was a bit difficult on my mom socially, probably than anybody else, because she had just left her friends at church that she grew up with and stuff. And my dad had good intentions. He was about education, and it was difficult. And on one hand, it was difficult, but on the other hand, I did everything that most white people expected me to do. I played football, basketball, ran track, and I could dance. And the thing what I messed them up is when I could swim. And they told me can't no black man swim. And see, what they don't understand is that my mother made us take swimming lessons every day for about 6 years in the summertime to keep us busy doing stuff. So it was different, especially when I played against other schools. high schools. If I played against a predominantly white school, you know, they just call me a bunch of names, and named some of them I never heard before. And then if I played against black schools like Grant or Sac High, they would think I was a white boy because I was the only black dude on the school. But they didn't know, after I burned them up for about 35, they didn't know that I was from Riverside. and this is what I tell people. And you know, I'm a combination of both, but I matured in Sacramento because I was a little skinny kid. And I didn't breathe well in the desert in Southern California. And I still don't. A lot of people like the desert. I don't like that dryness because my mom would always tell me, you know how easy you catch a cold, put your coat on. Then they didn't have any, nobody knew about allergies at that time. Everything was about a cold. And so it's 100 degrees out there. You already put a coat on. So when I came here and it rained and I could breathe, and I started growing. And a lot of the guys from Riverside hadn't seen me in a couple years. And all of a sudden I was like a man, you know, because when I came here, I was about 150 pounds maybe. Yeah. And when I left, I was like 175. And then when I left to go to the Marines, I came back, I was like 185. I started growing, then got up to about 210. And then I tried to stop, but then eventually got up around 220, you know.
So when you came up and you had to adjust and everybody else knew each other, you and your brother didn't really know anyone, would you say at that time, in some ways, sports saved you?
We did. I think we helped a lot of people understand black people. And I think we helped race relations, even though we didn't know we were helping race relations. Because a lot of times people don't, you know, they got these, you know, preconceived notions of how you're supposed to be until you're around somebody on a daily basis. And, you know, my best friend is not here tonight, but, you know, he was a kid that went to Grant, white dude. I didn't know he went to Grant. I didn't know anything about Grant. So the first day of school, he was new to the school and I was new to the school. And so he was watching me all day long in school. And in football practice, I said, hey man, you know, you want a piece of me? He kept looking at me the whole day, you know. And he said, no, brother. He says, I like your style. I said, really? And I said, what's your name? He said, Dennis. And I said, man, my name's Dusty. So we've been buddies ever since. But you know, no matter where you go or whatever you need a partner. You know, you need a buddy. And you need somebody that'll cover your back. And what happened to me is during, you know, Black Power and the racial unrest, when I went away to play ball, I quit writing him. I couldn't answer his phone calls because if something was going to go down, because the revolution was real. You know, when everybody talk about Gil Scott-Heron, the revolution is alive. And so if something would have happened where I was with him and, you know, around a lot of white dudes, and I would have probably had been injured, and if he was around me. And so I quit calling it, I couldn't do anything. And so I tell in the book, all of a sudden I'm going down the street in West Palm Beach, Florida, and this dude drove all the way from Sacramento to West Palm Beach to figure out why I quit calling. And I called my dad. He says, son, he said, no matter what nationality it is, he says, you don't have no friends that's going to drive all the way from California to Florida. And so we've been partners ever since.
That's great. It says so much. There's so many points in the book where you call Dad. And in fact, there's a quote in the book where he said, my dad was one of the coolest dudes I've ever known. And like, if your parents, this is what you would always hope for. And like, I can imagine.
No, but my dad didn't smoke, drink, nothing. And he was still cool. and people loved him. I mean, the women, they loved my daddy. I am not kidding you. And you know, he was charming. He was strong. He looked like Jim Brown, and you know. Oh yeah, and I see why my mom was good looking too now. Oh yeah, my mom was a model, and my mom had a charm school when they wouldn't let her model, with the white agency downtown. So she started a charm school of her own in Riverside for the little sisters in the neighborhood, and then my mom, would make me and my brother go down and be the secretary and check the little girls in.